Well, I don't think they're that bold at all. And the reason I don't think it's that bold is how about, let's say a major hurricane takes 10 to $50 billion out of the United States economy. If you get a week to 10 days of this kind of cold weather, and part of it is because of the winter we've had so far, the siege that we've had so far, and the stress that's been put on snow fighting, for instance. You know, people are running out of salt. You know, not my companies. I'll tell you, we got 4 or 5 snow fighting companies. They're ready. We got one of the biggest de-icing companies in the world. They're happy. I hate to say happy, but they're saying, okay, we're ready. We're ready. We've got all our product in line, ready to go. But what about the guys that bought into the warm winter? They're not ready. So how can they get there this quick? So what happens is, let's take the energy industry, natural gas. Okay, suppose you're a natural gas supplier and you have X amount of contracts at $4 or whatever it is. Okay, and you felt, well, I don't think there's going to be that big a winter, so I'm not going to buy that many contracts. But you still have to supply your client, or whoever it is you're supplying. Suppose you run out and you have to get it on the spot market where it's up $60, $80, $90, what would normally have cost $4. How much money is that taken out of your pocket? You see what I'm saying? And then where do you think that cost is going to go? You know, you think, oh, that company gets hit. No. It'll be passed on to the consumer. So things like that. Now, what happens when the power goes out? Let's say the power starts going out in a lot of places. I was really rattled by that. They were rolling blackouts into Alabama. I go, well, how the heck does this happen? I didn't see this happen before. And I wonder if we've kept up with the grid enough to meet demand with the population that we have now, given the situation. So what happens if let's take the insurance industry. Houses start losing power. It's easier to freeze pipes in the house. What starts happening when pipes start bursting? Well, I know firsthand what happens because we had pipes burst in my house. And so that starts piling up. What about people that are, if their electric bills an extra $200, $300 a month because of all this cold, they're not going to go out to eat maybe 2 or 3 times, or the entertainment gets hit. So all these multiples pile up. And then there's the human misery cost. And believe it or not, guys like me, even though I have a certain reputation, I came from a background of, caring about people. Let's put it that way, okay? We always taught that type of thing. It rips my heart out. Even in the summertime, I walk through a city and see homeless people, and I think, what the heck are they going to do when winter comes? And I always wonder about that. And you can't just sit there and go, oh, well, they'll just go to a shelter. Some of them don't get to shelters, all right? So the human toll is something that I'm talking about too. And then you get the people, and it's not that bad. I'm going to go drive on the highway during the blizzard. They go off the road or something like that. Wind's blowing. It's 5 below zero. Guess what? Doesn't take long to freeze. And then someone has to come out and save you. So when you do those multiples, and I had a post on Weatherbell, clarity about the severity, because people think, this guy's just looking for attention. I don't need to look for attention. The weather, believe it or not, will do it itself, right? Sometimes I look at all the hype that's going on. I go, this is crazy. But people want to hype the weather. But they hype it after it happens. At least I have the guts to come out before and say, hey, look out for this stuff, right? Before the fact, anybody could come on, I have my camera over here, the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour, and here I am, and there's a hurricane behind me. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You're telling me what's happening. Why didn't you tell me this a week before? So that's what I do. So I put the statement out, and it was meant to alert people to what could happen here. And then when they total it up, we'll see what happens. Look, if you're at the end of a round and someone clocks you, at least in a fight, at least you go sit down on the bench and get the cobwebs out of your head. That's what just happened. But if someone hits you at the front of the round and you got to put up with it for 3 minutes, you're in trouble. Now, I wrestled, so I know someone starts smashing me at the beginning of the match, I'm going to be in trouble as opposed to the end of the match. But the fact is, this is the equivalent of not letting up, all right? In the Northeast, it's going to start next week where you're going to see New York maybe hit 0 Wednesday night or Thursday night. And then the Central Plains, what comes from the plains, comes in. Now, it's probably going to hit 0 in Chicago before New York, but Chicago's temperatures are lower on average. So the deviation from normal may be greater in the east first, but then it comes down later next week and the following week right into the center part of the United States and spreads out. Well, I think you ride that. We're riding that 94, 1918 analog, and what eventually should happen in February is the cold should start getting back into the west. It'll still be across the lakes in northeast, but we see a ridge trying to come into the southeastern part of the United States mid and late month. So a war sets up because if you still have the blocking over the top, right? You still have that blocking going on over the top. What happens is, and what caught everybody off guard in December because they weren't looking back at 83 is you can have a trough centered in the west, but the United States is still very cold because low-level cold air will push and have its way and keep using the snow cover and everything else. And you sit there and you look, well, I mean, Philadelphia, that day the Eagles were playing in Philadelphia with a snowstorm, the 500 millibar heights were 150 meters above normal. I mean, I've seen Philadelphia be 15 degrees above normal in that pattern, but nobody lives at 18,000 feet. Everybody lives at the surface. So you're going to get into a war, I think, and I'm encouraged. I've told I'll let you know. I think that March is going to be a warm month across the United States. I've told my clients that. I told them a couple of days ago, so I don't mind telling you now. I think we're going to see the rubber band snap. And that's something that's interesting. Dr. Joel Myers over at AccuWeather, I remember when he was my mentor, and I started fighting with him the first day I went into class over there, and all about the weather. And I remember Joel used to talk about his rubber band theory, that you can only pull the pattern so far one way and it snaps the other way. And I saw that in 79 after the President's Day blizzard in February 1979, bang, March turned warm. 94, there was a lot of fighting in February, then March turned warm across much of the country. So you may see, and of course he's a little bit more seasoned than me, you may see a real old-timer idea come out here if that rubber band snaps. I think it has a chance to. Well, yeah, early in the season more than late in the season. The winter outbreaks that occur are a lot of times have to be in the early part of the season because the Gulf is still warm. The second season, November, December, even into January. We saw that January '96, the Great Arctic outbreak, that occurred in February, early February that you referenced. 2 weeks before, there were tornadoes in Alabama from the big thaw that was occurring. But when you get into the time of the year where the land is warming up faster than the ocean relative to temperatures, it's tougher to pull that type of thing. So you got to wait till April because remember what happens is with the seasonal shift, the land mass warms up a lot faster than the Gulf does. So if we get a couple of good air masses come into the Gulf, cold air masses, it'll try to cool the Gulf down a little bit. So at least that may retard that situation. You'll be looking at a lot of freezing rain situations, where the battle occurs, a lot of overrunning goes on. I'll have to go back and look at '94 a little bit more closely as far as that goes. No, listen. Whenever the one thing about March is whenever it gets warm in the center of the country, too warm like we saw a couple years ago, or too cold, it can wipe out the tornado season. See, the thing is, the tornado season needs variance, okay, back and forth fighting to get things going. The interesting thing about this past tornado season is the cold overwhelmed things so much that you could not get the tornado season to start until May. Like, when the big tornadoes broke out, and people were trying to make, agenda-driven ideas off that, I was saying, do you realize why this is occurring so late? Because it's been so cold and it's so far south, So that March, if you get March to be too warm or too cold, it retards the front part of the tornado season. So that's something I'm studying right now. Yeah, that outbreak, yeah. Now that trough, the El Reno trough, and you can see that coming. We actually had that from outlined. I used an old trick. You take the 1,008 millibar pressure and you look where the 65-degree wet bulb is, and until June 1st, if you can predict that a week away, you'll have a general idea of where the tornadoes. Dr. John Kerr at Penn State taught me that in our class. It's amazing how that works. And you think about, well, the lower the pressure, the more unstable the air. The higher the wet bulb, the more unstable the air. And at that time of the year, there's still these cold pockets that are coming in. Now, during the middle of summer, you can't use it because it's getting warm aloft. But that trough that came in, I mean, what was it, 4 standard deviations aloft as how cold that trough was that far south. And, of course, the El Reno tornado, which, was originally called a 3 and then a 5 and then a 3. And, it's just like all these things go on. That was the latest. If it was a 5, it was the latest furthest south in history. So what does that tell you about what was going on, that the baroclinic zone was shoved so far south that you guys had to wait until late May to see that type of thing?